This clip is brought to you by VegasWinners.com. Get expert sports betting advice from some of the best handicappers in the world. Head on over to VegasWinners.com and win yourself some money.
Let's talk about what else is changing. Of course, the first thing Mick does is announce that at No Mercy, Kurt Angle's going to get his rematch against Stone Cold Steve Austin, but now it's a three-way with Rob Van Dam joining the mix. This is going to be the biggest showcase for RVD at this point. It's only 3 months after his debut. We know that Paul Heyman is by your side, doing a lot of the commentary, and obviously that adds a nice wrinkle to all of this. But was Paul Heyman really pushing for Rob Van Dam behind the scenes? He used to be his biggest cheerleader in ECW, of course.
I think Paul's always been a big fan of RVD, and a lot of us became such. I talked to Rob over up in New York City here a while back. I was there for the New York City Comic Con. He still looks like he could wrestle to me. Somebody, he could help somebody. He would be an interesting candidate if everything was laid out in the correct way. When they used to have those title challengers in AEW, I mean, he'd be a good a selection, I think. I mean, am I looking at it right or wrong? What do you think?
No, I wouldn't disagree.
He looked good. Physically looks great. And I really enjoyed being, I was there, on those Thursday and Friday, a week or so ago. And he was just, he was fun to be around and doing good. Lives in Vegas. So, and that's not a bad thing. So anyway, but Paul is always firmly in the corner of RVD, and to a lesser degree to all the ECW alums. Paul had an invested interest. He helped create those characters. They already enhanced their opportunities. So he was just right there doing it, man.
So later on in this same night, this same episode of SmackDown, Rob Van Dam, after being announced as part of the main event of No Mercy, is pinned by Chris Jericho after Steve Austin interfered and cost him the match. That's going to give Jericho a shot at the WCW title. Do you remember it being a challenge to keep RVD a heel? He's a part of the alliance, but the crowd is actively cheering him. They're loving what they're seeing and they're pulling for the guy, but boy, the creative is he's a bad guy. What do you make of that as a guy who's been a big part of wrestling for so long, when maybe the office sees one thing and the crowd sees something totally different?
Yeah, we have to, that's a good point, Conrad. And I think that promoters, one of their biggest fallacies, one of the biggest mistakes a lot of promoters make is going full bore, full speed ahead with their creative, even though it's not the creative that the audience wants. And so you say, well, how, in my descriptions of him to any degree whatsoever, my deal was let's just make him a star,
right?
And let the wind blow him where it goes, and the fans either embrace him or not. But at least let's keep him in his normal character and the one that we hear the fans like. So, but sometimes bookers and the story writers, they look at those stories like they're their children. They don't want to change nothing.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I can't believe this is real, but we not only got a handicapper, but we got the best ever. So I got to ask, how are you so good at handicapping these games? I mean, 4-0, that's quite a streak already.
Well, let's talk about every pick I've given this year in the NFL as an example. 23-8. Every pick I've given this year. 4 weeks in the bag, 23-8. There's nobody in the country that can match what I do, but I always make sure, because anybody, Conrad, could make up anything. They could tell you and blow smoke and tell you, oh, I'm the greatest. But I am independently monitored and documented, so nobody could ever question what I say and go, I don't believe it. I send every pick to an independent monitoring and documentation service that has to get the pick before the game goes off and then publishes it after the game goes off so anybody can see what I gave. And those picks for the year, every NFL pick so far, 23-8. And I think it's because I do more homework than anybody else. The average guy or gal watching this podcast, they don't have time. They have a career, they have jobs. They might read the newspaper or go online and see something, but they don't have time 80 hours a week to study the games. That's what I do. And I have a crew of guys behind me, my consultants, who every week we get together 3 times a week and they throw their ideas at me. I throw my ideas at them.
Let's talk about something else that we should address. The biggest story coming out of this go home Raw for No Mercy was Rob Van Dam supposedly showing up late, at least in the ring, for the Alliance promo. And as the legend goes, it became part of the storyline. Did you ever hear about this? That maybe Van Dam wasn't where he needed to be in the backstage area, missed his cue to get in the ring, and then they said, well, hell, let's just go with it and turn it into a story.
I did not. It's an interesting assumption. And, you know, but he knew where the storyline was going. So I can't imagine Rob just AWOL right before the interview. But it did show him as an individual. And that's kind of what we always wanted to do. He was a kind of, I don't say lone wolf, because that's kind of an Austin thing, but him being defiant and being an individual, you know, and in our mind, you know, maybe Rob was still representing ECW even as their last hope for validation. But I never heard that story, to be honest with you. And that doesn't mean it couldn't have happened. It just means that 20 years ago, I don't remember that detail.
I also want to bring up Rob Van Dam at this point. I mean, his booking has not exactly helped him as far as the storyline goes. Like, it seems kind of quick that he's already in the main event, but Lord, people are loving the matches, except for maybe the guys he's wrestling. It's pretty common in this era, especially when he first came in, to see guys leave a little worse for wear on the other side of that match. A lot of folks getting busted open. Do you remember anyone complaining to you about Rob Van Dam?
No, because they knew my mindset was, you know, it ain't ballet.
Yeah.
And, you know, I don't remember doing it, but if I did, it was somewhat casual to tell Rob he's got to be a little bit more careful. He didn't ever go out to hurt somebody. He never intended to cause bodily harm in the process of a fictional athletic presentation. But his style had a small margin for error. You know, that coast to coast he did, you know, you don't practice that damn thing, you know?
No, no.
So, but I know he didn't have malice. And I know that if he did potato somebody, that he would tell them, you know, I apologize, like all the boys do.
Yeah.
But I just think that he was.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the podcast here on YouTube. Be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notifications bell so you get a notice anytime we upload some new content. And go save yourself some money right now. If you're in a 30-year loan or you have credit card debt, it's not a matter of if I can save you money. It's a matter of how much. Find out right now for free at SaveWithConrad.com.